And your presentation that you're going to do is the various disciplines of pony play. With 10 minutes, and then there's 10 minutes of Q&A.
20 minutes.
I'm going to set a timer because I really like to talk about pony play, and you guys don't want to hear me now.
20 minutes. 20 minutes of presentation.
And then 10 minutes of Q&A.
So,
Yeah, I thought you said 10.
No, it's 20, and then 10.
Okay. So you have 20 minutes and 10. I have an hour total.
thank you. Okay, so disciplines of pony play. When I first heard my talk, I thought disciplines, what does that really mean? And the way I understood it is there's various ways of expressing pony play. And that's actually how I'm going to go about it. So pony play is a really, really fun way to express yourself. And you can do it in how you've seen it done last evening, where you were doing what I like to consider as human pony play. And that is where an individual who would be a pony gets into a certain headspace that would, get as authentically close to a biological horse as they feel they can and that they want to. And then you have the other human who is the trainer, and that would be akin to a talk if you were to do a BDSM scene. And that form of play can be really, really fun. You can get as technical as you want and go for quite advanced techniques like dressage and Western, and right there are two subcategories that I can talk about. There's other ways of doing pony play. Pony play can be all about bondage. Actually, when you look at how we treat bio horses, their life is like bondage, and they are changed through the bondage. And so, you can really have an amazing scene where you have taken your partner and you have given them a rope harness, you have restricted their arms. I mean, some of the ways that we do pony play is with arms behind your back. As well, we add sensory deprivation by limiting your sight. Their gags, now they might not be able to speak. So that is another, I would call that bedroom play in a lot of ways. It's a play you can bring to a club where you don't have a giant arena. You might just have the space to do a typical scene, and there you can dress your pony up. Another way that pony play I've seen done, and I feel is a discipline of itself, is in terms of objectification and humiliation. Many ponies really like being able to take the break from their adult human life, and they might get a sense of service from it or a sense of submission from it, and they just become the living, breathing property of their trainer. And so if you have someone who really, really enjoys being objectified, then they might, they lose their human clothing, they lose their hands, their use of their thumbs. They become a beast of burden. If you have someone who likes to be humiliated, you're going in a very different direction with your pony play. And I do want to, let everyone think about that for a minute. Humiliation play is challenging and tricky and fun. When people come together and enjoy it, they really do, and they get something out of it that can tend to be cathartic, but maybe it's just the way we play. So if you were to do humiliation play, it's not my personal preference. So I don't get as much out of it, but you could, have someone now be turned into that beast of burden that is being forced to pull something heavy and endure, a lot of physical stress or emotional stress in the scene as a pony. I also consider show ponies another form of pony play, discipline of pony play, and that I liken to what rubber and latex fetishists get from their play, from wearing the costuming. Ponies love to generally have some visible, sign of their pony, whether they've got ears or a tail. And so if you have someone who is very, very much into the gear and they're a show pony, then they love being seen and having the attention. And you don't necessarily need to have a power change in it when you do that kind of play. You can just be out in your gear. And I've met several ponies, and that's the way they do it for them, and that's what works. They're not looking to submit, they're not looking to engage in any kind of bondage or have their movements limited. But for them, authentic pony play is all about having their maidens nail on, having their masks, and being out and people looking at them and going, if you're sadistic or narcissistic, then that's perfect. Like that's actually a great way to groom and to get your play in. You can even go into, BDSM scenes where your pony's naughty and they're getting punishment, and it's all about, having the crop used on them in a way that they find quite enjoyable. And if someone was to walk off the street who was part of the key communities, they saw that, they would say, they're having a great painting scene, or they're having a really great scene, but they're doing it through this vehicle of pony that they're expressing themselves. Maybe their pony self is really wild and needs to be tamed, whereas in their human self, their personality is that they're quite actually, calm and somewhat, law-abiding. Like they would be the one who would enforce the protocols of the club. But when they're in pony space, they get to be a rebel. They get to come out, and then they also get to be put back, into their place with their talk. As well, I guess I would expand on that. You can do all of those things in a scene as a pony. I've actually had that experience where I've gotten into someone. We negotiated what we were going to do, and they started with some power exchange. They took my human self, my things that I marked myself as human away. So undressed me in human clothes, packed me up. I lost my ability to use my hands, my mouth, as I had my dick put in. And that for me, that was hugely submissive. Like I felt like so submissive to them, and was very much in their control. And then they walked me around and they had me do different steps, and that really tapped into the dynamic that I really love from human pony play, where you're doing dressage and you're doing Western events. And then they brought me over, and they were how do they put it? It was role play at that point, and they were the vet, and they were preparing my flanks, and they were spanking me and using a prop in that way. And I actually really enjoyed it in that way, in that sense. I wasn't sure I would, because for me, pony play is very much, I enjoy the human pony aspect. But it was nice to feel it. It was nice to know that I could tap into that space of masochism and enjoy that pain in that vulnerable position as a pony. And you can also do pony play, to change the subject a little bit, in a sexual way. And that one, a lot of people get a visceral reaction to that. But if for you, if you had this kind of fantasy, this is a really safe way to live it out, where you don't actually have to even worry about the taboo coming to reality. You could be the stud who then gets to go and service all the mares. You could just be a broodmare, and right there, if you're being, role playing as a broodmare, or say you're out pony gear and your trainer decides, okay, we're going to breed you today, like that's incredibly hot. You become essentially a sex slave in a consenting scene. You would hope that either yourself or your trainer would have negotiated everything, because safe, sane, consensual BDSM no matter what. And you get to kind of meet the dressing behind it. Oh my God, I'm having sex with someone. Does that make me slutty, or am I going to have to worry about a relationship afterwards? Well, if you're in pony mode, you're just a mare being bred, or you're just a stud being used. That's a really liberating feeling. There's different things you can do. It's interesting, because if you look at subcategories of human pony play, you've got all sorts of different kinds of ponies. You've got beautiful ponies, just like in the biological horse world, who are shown, and they really focus on their visual form, like how they're holding their pose, how their manes and tails fall. With human horses, you get into lineage. With pony play, I think most people call it a day at just making sure that they represent the breed, but you never know. There could be someone who wants to do up their lineage. You also have, with human ponies, you've got the worker pony. And worker ponies, they don't want to be dressed up fancy. They want to pull stuff. They want to be put to work. They want to feel like their service comes out as actual physical work. And that's where their passion lies. And so when you've got them tired and sweaty and they can't pull anymore, you've had a really great scene with them. That kind of scene is incredibly different from one where you take your partner and you tie them up and you give them a club tail. Very different feeling to those two scenes. You can do either exchange, and you can do a scene to focus on the technical skills that are happening. And one way that I think of pony play is very much like any other fetish is that when you take rope, the same thing. You can use rope so that you can tie your partner to the bed and cuff them. You can use rope to make beautiful art. You can use rope to, put them in a position that they hold and endure for you, and they do it for you, or they do it for the pain of having to endure the position. The same thing with pony play. So when I think of disciplines for pony play, that's where my mind goes. It goes to the different ways it's expressed, the different goals that the partners have when they engage in that form of play, and the different way gear is used. I'm just going to check my time. So, other things I've talked about in terms of disciplines. You can almost even expand with the human pony aspect, and that is where you see dressage and Western ponies, show ponies, and look at if you're going to be going as true to life as possible, or as true to a creative outlet as possible. And by that I mean you are going to do something that is more like a scene as opposed to living and replicating a biography. And you can do pony play so that all you're focusing on is, what kind of coloration would this breed have? If they were this height and this weight, and you now translate it into the human height, weight, their strength, what would they actually be able to do? Would you have a pony that could jump, a 5-foot fence, and now you brought it down to a 3-foot fence? Or is that breed, a trotter? And if they're a trotter, well, do they have a specific style of gait, or is it just jogging with their gear on? I find that if you do human pony play and you want a specific style of movement, that is incredibly challenging, and it requires a different skill set than, say, if you're doing pony play just to run around. And for me, when I say just to run around, I mean to get into the pony head space and express yourself in an unstructured way, not in a way that's not mindful. Being mindful in pony space is, I think, kind of key for that to work. I don't know very much about Western pony play. That is my next thing to start learning about and exploring. So I don't want to touch too much on it, except that I love all the different activities you can do. Barrel racing, pole bending, those are great. Those are tangible things that I can see. And for me, I can say, yes, that's Western. That is a style of play. It requires, that you're fast. It requires that you can turn quickly. Does it have overlapping skill sets? Yes, you have to be able to respond to your trainer instructions. You have to be able to wear the gear that makes you feel authentic and still be able to move. When you're putting together an event for ponies and you just want it to be a general event, this is something I'm running into, is being able to have space for all the different kinds of pony play. I want the show ponies to be able to come out and us to recognize that for them, what's going on is beautiful, and to basically validate it, say yes, this person has spent time researching to make sure that their pony persona looks exactly the way they wanted to, and not just say they're an Arabian or a Clydesdale. If you've got a pony who might be a My Little Pony, maybe not a Little One Pony, that's a different kind of play, and what they do and how they do it, I wouldn't say necessarily needs its own category, but needs its own recognition. So, that's always an interesting challenge, finding a way to have all the different ways of pony play happen, and then to be able to see distinct disciplines. I think I'm just going to sum up with pony play is kind of great. You can use it in all sorts of different ways, and it can be expressed in all sorts of different ways. I think that's it. Thank you.
No, she gets a question and answer now. So if the judges have any questions, questions, or anyone has any questions, they can ask her a question for her to cover.
That's what I was fixing to say. Yeah, 10 minutes, question, answer, general public. Can be any question, any on your subject, be on your presentation. It'll just be a question and answer session from the general public or the judge.
Question. So I'm looking at photos right here of ponies pulling carts. Have you ever pulled a cart?
I have actually.
And what does that feel like? How does that feel different than actually just having a trainer hold the reins for you?
For a mental headspace, it's no different. When I'm in pony space, it's about command obey. It's a submissive, dominant, service-oriented experience. So when I got to pull a cart, I was using different muscles in different ways, responding to commands slightly differently than when someone's training. So that was where I found the difference. That to me is fantastic because you can do cart play differently as well. Like you could do it that you're forcing someone to pull a cart, or you could have the pony who's like thrilled and champing at the bit to pull the cart. I honestly just found it that I was like, yay, I get to do this for nicer this way now.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I was wondering if you could talk a bit about the idea of discipline. I mean, you talked about the different disciplines of pony play, but I was wondering if you could talk about the idea of discipline and how that relates to pony play, because I had misheard the question as it appeared last night, and I think it's a fascinating relationship between those two.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Discipline, there's a lot of different opinions on it in terms of power exchange, and in terms of kink. You talk to some people, they'll say, oh yeah, I love it when I get punished. And other people are like, well, that's not punishment, that's play. Discipline in terms of pony play, I think it's up to the players. As a pony, when I'm in pony space, the last thing I want is to feel sting at the front. That to me is a negative experience. And so having firm touches, having, being pulled up and forced to repeat something until I get it correct to what my handler wants, that to me is discipline. If I was to do a scene, say I was to do something like a takedown scene, well, then I would expect rougher handling, and that would be a goal. So if you've got a pony who's into BDSM and is doing the bedroom play or the club play, and they're naughty, they might be doing things in a scripted way on purpose to get a scripted response, which would be where the S&M comes in with, say they're now hobbled because they keep running around. They're not obeying. And it's quite enjoyable for both partners because their goal is to actually not necessarily have a scene of command obey, of dominance submission. It's a scene of play. If you are talking with someone and you want to do, say you're negotiating with a new partner to do pony play, one of the things I would actually really recommend is to have that conversation. What is your goal? And that's my turn. What is your goal with this exchange? Are you looking for someone you can control? Are you looking for someone that will challenge you? Are you looking for someone that you're going to partner with and learn new skills together? If you've got someone who they go, and I know a pony who's like this. She goes deep into pony space, but she has a wild pony who needs to be gentle and tamed. And for her, coming to that power exchange and that place of command obey requires that she's being trained just as we train human ponies, and that does involve various forms of discipline. However, she wouldn't enjoy, say, a cropping of these bruises. But I would also say that's a red herring. That's not necessarily discipline. That's one of those things where you really need to talk to your partner about what they mean when they say, that they want to be trained or they want to be gentle.
been in a public setting, not a dungeon, in a Central Park in New York, street legal clothing? Have you ever done it? What are your thoughts on it?
I have. Okay, so on my own, I will practice on a mobile wall diamond, which without my handler, it just looks like an interesting form of exercise. With my handler, we've got the reins, we've got the bit. People can tell we're doing something beyond exercise. I'm comfortable playing in public. You know, for me, as long as I'm making sure that I'm perfectly attired, I'm not engaging in anything that someone would refer to say is such as genital playing, and we're not engaging in this kind of S&M because S&M is recognizable. And if you're another person coming into that, it either look like abuse and assault, or you can be like, that's the Lucy James thing. So that I don't do in public because I don't feel it's appropriate. You don't have the consent of everyone walking around you to be involved in that this evening. However, in terms of playing just pony play the way I like to do it in public, I'm really comfortable doing it. I've done it in Pride, and I've done it at Pearl Park, and I do practices at the community center. And what we do for our practices is, I say workout attire, sensible shoes. We're going to work on whatever skill sets you would like. If it's something sexual, talk to me. We will do that in an appropriate setting. Community center is not the place to have a party most of the time. It's not, so then you wouldn't do sexual pony play there either.
Yay.